what is that career tree brings on the table as far as competency frameworks are concerned?
Going back to the days of David McClellan, going back to the days of Richard Boyatzis. Yeah. So it's not something new. The future for competency development, assessing people against competencies, will be there forever. We are not creating it for an elite intellectual set of people in the organization. We are creating it for those who actually perform the job.
Now AIs can come up with dictionaries in a trice.
Communication as a competency in a BPO sector, communication as a competency in, let's say, a chemical manufacturing unit, communication as a competency in a retail sector would be defined differently based on the business context. So when I say STAR technique, in simple words, it's called situation, task, action, and result.
Now, what kind of future you foresee for this competency framework as a whole? Because this is there in existence for last several years now, and there are many players who are offering this kind of services. So, two things. One is what kind of future you oversee, and secondly, what is that career tree brings on the table as far as competency frameworks are concerned?
Competency development or the term competency is not something new.
Yes.
We may be using this term quite frequently in the last 2 decades or so.
True.
But those who really contributed to what I would call it as the movement of competency,
Yes.
it happened in 1970s, 1980s.
True.
Going back to the days of David McClellan, going back to the days of Richard Boyatzis. Yeah. So it's not something new. I mean, if it was relevant only to that era, then it wouldn't have survived for the last 50 years, despite the kind of changes that we have seen.
Yes.
So in my view, it would continue to remain relevant. The future for competency development, assessing people against competencies, will be there forever. The only thing is what sort of competencies. That will only change. For example, in the 90s and during the millennium period, I wanted my people to be more tech savvy or computer savvy. But today, those are all basic things. They are not really differentiating competencies. The differentiating competencies are the ones where my employee is able to use the digital tools to be able to provide a clear analytical insight at the least possible time. So that's the competency that I'm looking for. So do they demonstrate those kind of both behavioral and functional competencies is what I look for. So the nature of competencies that I may look for would change, but the requirement of competencies would always remain the same as long as the performance output is dependent on human.
Okay.
Obviously, when you bring in AI into everything, you may not really required to apply this competency framework, but wherever human intervention is there, you would still need competent people. Even to create that AI, you need a competent people. So it will be relevant. It will be relevant at all times.
So what does career tree brings onto the table when it is?
Yeah, so we keep it simple. We don't complicate it, because at the end of the day, who are the users of this competency framework? Who are the beneficiaries of this competency framework? It's the employees. We are not creating it for an elite intellectual set of people in the organization. We are creating it for those who actually perform the job and who want to know what is that I'm expected to demonstrate. So keeping it simple is very, very important.
Yes.
So there are 2-3 things that we do. One is we would advise the organizations to keep the number of competencies made applicable to any role limited to 12, maximum 15, all put together. Core competencies, behavioral competencies, functional competencies.
Okay.
That's number one, because too many would actually dilute the intention of the program. Second, throughout this program, it's important to engage all the employees at different levels. So participation of theirs is equally critical. For example, if you want to study the role of L&D executive to define the competencies for the L&D executive position, it's better to talk to the person concerned to understand How does this typical day look like? What are the various responsibilities that the individual perform? What challenges does he or she undergo? And thereafter get it validated by the reporting manager or the respective SME, subject matter experts in their organization. That would help you to define the skills and knowledge required in a very simplified manner. In the absence of interaction with the employee, offline you sit and develop something as a list of competencies and create a dictionary. You're surely going to fail.
Okay.
So therefore, employee participation at all levels is critical. The kind of languages that you use in defining the knowledge and skills required, creating the competency dictionary, should be so simple that people who are required to use those framework understand what it really means. So I would say it is for the employees, and we keep it simple. So some certain things related to the way we do job analysis, the way we write dictionaries, the way we provide difference between skill and knowledge, the kind of feedback methodology that we have after the assessment center is completed, the facilitation methodology in terms of developing individual development plan. All these are, I would say, I'm not saying others are not doing it, but we are very focused on that, and that's something that I consider as a unique approach of career tree.
But you have mentioned about the AI coming into the picture. So, with the advent of AI, how do you see that this competency frameworks can be developed in a proper structured manner? For example, now AIs can come up with dictionaries in a trice. So, how, what difference career tree is bringing to the table while developing the competencies?
Let's imagine a situation if one type of a dictionary can be applied to most organizations. There is no need for a facilitator like us, and there's no need for any specialist. Communication as a competency in a BPO sector, communication as a competency in, let's say, a chemical manufacturing unit, communication as a competency in a retail sector would be defined differently based on the business context. So when I say communication, we are not talking about the language proficiency. We are talking about how do I articulate, what is the kind of confidence I express while speaking, how good am I in terms of a listener, what is the kind of ability that I demonstrate in responding to an opposing view, what sort of approach do I take to convince others in the group. All this. So it can range from my ability to influence to my ability to inspire. Right. So when we do this, you can't have one set of dictionary applied to the entire world and a mass and then say, this is what communication means. If that was the thing, I mean, everybody would apply this competency development quite easily. But that's not the case. So the point
So,
to be understood.
how do you bring the differentiation?
Yeah. So the point to be understood is the dictionary talking the language of my business? Is the dictionary talking the language of my job? So the retail employees working in retail would expect the dictionary to talk the retail language. So is the case with the employees from other sectors. So therefore, while defining the dictionary, writing the dictionary, a lot of human thinking is very critical. You bring in the artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can give you certain insights, but it may not be able to clearly tell you what is the right way of defining the competency for the audiences for which it's going to be used. So that still is driven by individuals, specialists, and I would think that it will continue to be driven by specialists. So to that extent, yes, AI would enable you, but if you decide to cut copy from AI, you are heading to a disaster.
Are there various types of competencies?
Yeah, broadly, competencies can be classified into three clusters: leadership, functional, and core competencies. Nomenclatures can be different. Functional competencies, you can use the titles as occupational competencies, technical competencies. Similarly, leadership competencies, you can use the term called managerial competencies, behavioral.
Okay.
Same goes with core also. Core competencies, you can call it as foundational, fundamental, etc. But broadly, in my view, the models that I've studied across various organizations around the globe, there are only three sets of competencies.
What set of process do you deploy to identify competencies while doing the framework?
Behavioral event interview,
Yes.
job analysis, leadership discussions.
Can you tell something about BEI? You have mentioned about behavioral events interview.
Yeah, so behavioral event interview is a methodology which is applied in two scenarios.
Okay.
In a scenario where you are studying the behaviors demonstrated by a star performers to really understand what sort of knowledge, skills, and attitudes that were exhibited by them to handle a very complex situation and deliver a very successful results. So they are called as star performers. So what sort of difference do they bring in with respect to their skill, knowledge, and attitude to become a star performer? So
Okay.
that helps you to define the competencies. The same behavioral event interview is a methodology that you can apply in your selection process. So you have already identified the set of competencies. Now you are assessing somebody through an interview methodology. You have certain set of questions which are developed using the STAR technique, and then you are asking those questions. So that will help you decide if the candidate is the right fit for the position or not. So when I say STAR technique, in simple words, it's called situation, task, action, and result. So the questions that we would ask is, what was the situation in which you handled this particular, you demonstrated this particular action? So what were the actions that you performed as an individual, not as a group, as an individual? And what were the, uh, what was the task and what was the, so when I say STAR technique, S stands for situation. So supposing if I'm assessing you on a competency related to customer relationship building, so I would ask a question. So, when was the last time that you faced a crisis with respect to convincing a long time customer on an issue that was likely to disrupt the customer loyalty
So
in the
these are
organization?
mostly the events-based responses by the
Scenario
leaders.
based questions.
Scenario-based
Scenario
questions.
based
Okay.
questions. So that is a yes. So you start with that situation, then you say, so what was the task? So you were required to kind of convince the customer or build that rapport with the customer to assure the customer that such a such a response from your team would not happen again. And then what was the kind of action that you demonstrated, and what was the result? So typically, you apply this methodology in an interview to find out if the candidate exhibited the kind of appropriate behaviors that you would expect him to apply in the job if you select him and engage him in that particular.
So does that mean that you deploy same set of tools for assessing behavioral and functional competencies, or there are going to be
Tools are
changes in
different.
tools are
Tools are
different?
different. Assessment or development center or BEI. A BEI, of course, it's a BEI methodology. If it's a development center, case study analysis and presentation, in basket exercise, group discussions. So in the group discussion, also there's something called leaderless group discussion, leadership assessment test, then group simulation, business simulation, role plays. These are various tools. Whereas when it comes to functional competencies, there are only two aspects that you typically follow. If you want to assess the knowledge part of it for a very junior level specialist role, you can take a functional test route. Otherwise, typically we go in for a subject matter expert assessment. So, which means a subject matter expert would come, he or she will do the assessment, or a panel of members will form you know, the assessment panel to assess people. So, these are two methodologies.
Thank you, Karthik, for this wonderful discussion, and I am sure that the audience will also enjoy this topic.
Thank you, Murli. I think it was a wonderful conversation, I must say. I would say this is just the beginning of the journey. We would have many more conversations like this on different topics. We'll also take the feedback from audiences on what they would like to hear and what is the kind of detailing that they would like to see in our conversation. And accordingly, we'll have our next podcast. Wonderful talking to you. Thank you.